Okay, so rather than have me ask all the questions that I want to ask, I have a radio show. I can do that because I can call him and say, hey, come on my show.
Let's do it more. I like
We should do that. But you can't do that. So I want to take some questions from the audience, but I want to take questions from the audience, not preambles and preliminary statements about your beliefs from the audience. You get it? All right, because there's a lot of people here, and Vivek has to hopefully get out of here before we got all snowed in. So, anybody have a hand up? Gentleman back here in the scarf. You're going to have to speak up because we don't have a mic. So if you can boom your voice.
Vivek, I heard your position on CBDCs. I'd also like to hear what you think about digital wallets and passcodes as far as personal.
So I'll repeat the question. Thank you. What's your name? John asks a good question. So it's like an advanced question, so let me at least just break it down because there's a lot of alphabets there. So first question was about CBDCs, right? So that's central bank digital currencies. I'm an opponent to central bank digital currencies. This is table stakes. This is table stakes for any Republican candidate. You all have I'm just going to pause to go on a small little soapbox here. You all have a sacred responsibility in the American electoral process, okay? You get to do, along with your friends in Iowa, something that the rest of the country doesn't get to do, which is this, actually. The rest of it's intermediated by a two-dimensional screen. This is where you actually get to press on who's real, who's not, who knows what they're doing, who doesn't. Whoever else comes through here, make sure you tie their hands to the same mast that I'm tying mine on central bank digital currencies, and I'll tell you why. Okay, this is the mechanism that the government uses or can use to effectuate its policy agenda that completely obviates the lawmaking process. So this means instead of the cash in your wallet or in your bank account, you have a digital ledger that the government manages instead. It's like you're playing in like a video game and you get certain points. If the government doesn't like what you're doing, it allows them to immediately deduct those points. Now, one of the most mysterious reasons for why you see proponents of CBDCs in the West, in places like the UK, where it's now become quite popular. You know, Rishi Sunak has actually spoken about this, so-called conservative in the UK. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some Republicans in the United States following suit, is that China's doing it. So we have to do it to stay competitive. Think, people. Just think for a second. Think about this for a second. China is doing it for a reason. It's the very reason I told you. They believe in a social credit scoring system. They want to be able to do the thing that I told you to fear. That's why they're doing it. So why on earth would we want to imitate China? So they will say that, well, if we don't do it, then the dollar won't be strong anymore. Well, I got 2 points in response to that. The first most obvious point is that actually in a world in which the rest of the countries use these CBDCs, which are at risk of being used as punishment, I think the dollar might do just fine as a currency that people might want to hold in that world. And the second is it just presumes that the strong dollar should be some hands-down policy goal anyway, which is this whole separate discussion for another day relating to imbalances of American manufacturing malcompetitiveness that's artificial at home, but that's a discussion for another day. Back to CBDCs, what you need to do is you need to ask every candidate as a litmus test, do you commit to opposing the use of central bank digital currencies in the United States? Because that's a proxy for their view on sovereignty. It is a proxy for their view on whether or not they believe in the constitutional system of 3 branches of government rather than an extra-constitutional vehicle of implementing their agendas. Now, when I actually was at Potter's Bakery down in Rochester this morning, and someone actually saw my tweet on this issue and said, hey, does it really matter what a president thinks? I might prefer, might it just be better if we'd have a president who doesn't even know what a CBDC is? And I thought that was a valid question for a second, but then I was like, nah, I don't think so. Because here's why. When people don't know the underlying actual issues for themselves, when they're just reading the binders that somebody else handed them and then spew those in the form of talking points that turn into policies,
it means they're like flags. They look good, but they will wave in whatever direction the wind blows on a given day. That is not the kind of leader that we need in the United States today. And so my ask of you right now, I said 2023 isn't about the who. It's about the what and the why. But when you're thinking about the who in the back of your head, okay, make sure you're picking somebody who's speaking about what they're speaking about from their own knowledge base, from their own convictions. I think you all have, with a lot of New Hampshire practice over the years, probably a pretty good nose for somebody who's given you what someone told them to say versus somebody who's sharing with you their convictions. And I would rather take, I hope I speak for every one of you, somebody who agrees with 80% of what you say, but is saying it with the conviction that is their own, rather than 100% of what you say, of what you think, because it was poll tested for them to spew it back at you. That'd be my ask of you, and that's what the next year is going to be all about. And on the digital wallets and everything else, same answer: no, hard pass. Thank you very much. Next question.
Croc TV.